I've seen a lot of people call Ye Shunguang a shallow character. Some say she's just waifu bait, some say her story feels forced, some say she trusts the proxy way too easily. And honestly, I don't think that reading of her character is fair. So in this video, I want to talk about Ye Shunguang not from a gameplay or meta perspective, but from a narrative one. I want to break down why I think her character works, why some of the criticism misses the point, and what her role in the story is actually doing. This is my take on a character that sparked way more discussion than I expected. Before getting into any of the criticism around Ye Shunguang, I think it's important to talk about what her story is actually doing. Because once you understand that, a lot of the reactions to her start to make more sense. At its core, Ye Shunguang's story isn't about power, it's about burden. She's someone who's been chosen to carry something that no one else can, and that choice wasn't really hers. The power she has is necessary, it protects people, it keeps things from falling apart. But every time she uses it, it costs her something. Her memories, her sense of self, eventually even her life. That creates the central tension of her character. She isn't struggling with whatever she can do the right thing. She's struggling with how much of herself she's willing to lose in the process. Everyone around her knows this. They care about her, they worry about her, they want to keep her safe. But because of that, they treat her less like a person and more like something that needs to be preserved, something fragile, something important, which slowly strips her of her ability to choose for herself. So Ye Shunguang's story isn't about rebellion, and it's not about heroics either. It's about someone who understands the cost of what they're doing and still decides to carry that weight. Not because she's fearless, but because she believes that someone has to. That's the heart of her arc, and once you look at her through that lens, a lot of her decisions stop looking naive and starts looking intentional. Before moving on, I want to talk about the criticism around Ye Shunguang, because a lot of it comes again and again. The most common one I see is the whole waifu bait argument. And honestly, yeah, it's there. At this point, that kind of surface level affection is just part of gacha games. Anytime a character shows warmth towards the protagonist, people immediately label it that way. Whatever you like it or not, it's not going anywhere. And the important part is this: it's not meant to go anywhere either. It's momentary, it's light, it doesn't change the core story. Personally, I don't love the way it never develops into something deeper, but I don't hate it either. It exists, you can enjoy it or ignore it, and move on. Where I think things start getting misread is when that single element gets treated as the entire character. Because Ye Shunguang isn't built around romance or affection, she's built around a very old storytelling archetype, the chosen one. And that archetype has always been about more than power, it's about responsibility, and more importantly, consequences. Every time she uses her power, there's a cost. She moves closer to losing her memories, and eventually closer to losing herself entirely. That alone gives her weight. But what's more interesting is how that burden affects the people around her. Everyone knows what will happen if she keeps going, so they worry about her, they want to protect her, they want to keep her safe. And without meaning to, they slowly take away her freedom to choose. They decide for her. That tension, being powerful, but not fully in control of your own life, is central to who she is. And this is where her relationship with Proxy starts to make sense. I've seen people say that it feels rushed or cheap, or that it should have started with mistrust, but that ignores context the story clearly gives us. She already knows who the Proxy is. She recognized them from her childhood. This isn't a stranger walking into her life. And for most of her time in the faction, she was the youngest member, always watched, always protected, always treated like someone fragile. When the Proxy joins, that dynamic finally changes. For the first time, she isn't the youngest anymore. She's a senior, and she enjoys that. You can clearly tell she loves that. More importantly, the Proxy listens to her. They don't treat her like an object that needs to be preserved. They don't make decisions on her behalf. They let her choose. Given her situation, that matters more than people realize. So no, her trust doesn't feel rushed to me, and her character doesn't feel shallow. It feels contextual. Another criticism I've seen is that Ye Shunguang is naive or childish. And again, I don't really agree with that. What people are reacting to here isn't immaturity. It's the same chosen one archetype. Chosen characters are often written as people who put others before themselves, people who act even when it puts them in danger, even when it costs them something. Because of that, they don't always make the most logical choice. They don't stop and calculate every outcome. They don't always choose the option that keeps them safest. That's usually what gets labeled as naivety. People look at her decisions and ask why she doesn't just protect herself first. But that isn't bad writing. That's the point. Her character is built around accepting the responsibility that comes with the power she was given. She understands what that power is, she understands the consequences, and she still chooses to use it. That doesn't make her simple. If anything, it makes her consistent. And it definitely doesn't mean she isn't afraid. Fear is a huge part of her story. She's terrified of what using that power will do to her, terrified of losing her memories, terrified of losing herself. That fear becomes so overwhelming that it literally manifests into another personality. That alone tells you she isn't careless. She knows exactly what's at stake. She's just willing to carry that weight anyway. And that's why calling her naive or childish doesn't really land for me. She's not unaware of the danger. She's choosing to face it. One of the reasons I think Ye Shunguang works so well is that her story doesn't exist in isolation. She's at the center of this arc, but everything around her is pulled towards that center. Her burden doesn't just affect her, it reshapes the people around her. The clearest example of that is her brother. His entire storyline is driven by the same question: how do you save someone who was chosen to suffer? He's constantly searching for answers, for alternatives, for loopholes. Not because he doesn't understand the danger, but because he refuses to accept that this is the only possible outcome. And that creates a really strong contrast. Ye Shunguang accepts her role, her brother fights against it. They're just responding to the same destiny in different ways, and that tension adds a lot of emotional weight to the story. And then there's the protector of the temple. This part of the story is important because it's very easy to simplify it, but the story itself doesn't. What the protector did is clearly presented as wrong, but is not presented as mindless evil. After Ye Xuan's sister died, her goal was clear. She wanted to seal the weapon, to stop the cycle entirely, to make sure no one else would be forced to inherit that destiny. From her perspective, that cost was already too high. The protector didn't agree. He believed that this weapon wasn't just a burden, it was a pillar of their faction, something that had to be passed on, something that had to exist no matter the cost. So he went behind her back. He started searching for children who could inherit that destiny, not to protect them, but to see if they could survive it. That's where the story draws a very clear line. The protector isn't acting out of malice, he's acting out of belief. Believe that the system matters more than the individual. Believe that sacrifice is acceptable if it preserves stability. Believe that the role must continue, even if it destroys the person who carries it. And Ye Shunguang is the result of that choice. She isn't just unlucky, she is the consequence of two opposing philosophies colliding. One side is trying to end the cycle, the other is trying to preserve it at any cost. And she's the one who has to live with the outcome. At the end of the day, Ye Shunguang isn't built on a complicated archetype. She's not subverting it, she's not reinventing it either. She's a very classic figure in storytelling. But what makes her interesting isn't the archetype itself, it's everything that forms around it. Who she is, how much she understands the cost of her role, how the people around her react to that burden, how the world tries to manage her existence instead of asking what she wants. So while the foundation is simple, the result isn't. Her story becomes complex because it isn't about her choices, it's about how much choice she's actually allowed to have. And that's why I don't think she's shallow or naive or badly written. She's a character shaped by responsibility, fear, belief, and expectation, often all at the same time. Whatever you like her or not, it's still up to you. But I think there's more going on there than people give her credit for. And that's why I want to talk about her. Now, if you made it this far, thank you for sticking with me. This was one of those characters I didn't expect to think about as much as I did, and I wanted to slow down and talk through why she works for me, even if she doesn't work for everyone. If you enjoyed this kind of breakdown, looking at the characters from a story and narrative perspective, I'll be doing more of this going forward. And yeah, I don't usually say this, but if you like this video, consider leaving a like. It really helps me more than you think. And if you want to see more videos like this, whatever it's gacha stories, characters, or other narratives, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.